Hey y'all, I'm Taylor and I live in Texas, and life is really challenging right now. And just when it seems like surely this is it, something else happens. There's another news headline, and somehow it all feels even more difficult than the day before. I know we've all been feeling these things lately with the state that the world is in. I've spent a lot of time in therapy over the past few years doing a lot of self-reflection, self-work, a lot of learning. So today I've got 9 different strategies that have been really helpful for me that I'm going to go through. I'm going to stay away from politics. I'm not going to take any sides. I just want to try to help share some things that might be helpful because we're all in this together. So if that sounds like something that you need, stick around. We can work through this together. We've got this. If you're new to my channel, my name's Taylor Heaton with Mom on the Spectrum. I'm an autistic mom, and my channel is all about sharing resources with the autistic community to help us navigate, especially a life as a late diagnosed autistic person. If this content is helpful or meaningful to you, if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, that's seriously such a gift and I really appreciate it. Quick disclaimer, and then we'll jump right in. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist. I'm an autistic mom who's been through a lot of therapy, so that counts for something, right? But don't take any of this as medical advice, and please consult your own medical providers before making any changes to your healthcare routine. The first strategy that I want to share with you today is allowing yourself to feel the weight of the emotions that you've been feeling. That sounds kind of scary, and I know it is because there are a lot of emotions and a lot of weight to feel and to process. Our emotions actually get stored in our body. So if something upsetting or traumatic or challenging happens and we don't take a moment to process that, we don't take the time we need to really feel through that, it kind of stays around. And I think if you just kind of reflect on that point for a minute, maybe that might feel true to you. If you've been through something upsetting but haven't taken the time to really work through it, somehow it just kind of lingers. And you might not even feel it in a specific way, but you have this emotional baggage that kind of comes around with you. If you're a parent like me, it might not be convenient to just feel these emotions whenever they come up. I know I've had a lot of big emotions come up recently, and you don't always just want to feel the weight of it in front of your kids because that might be pretty upsetting to them, to everyone involved. So it is okay to decide at some point, I'm going to push pause here. I'm not going to let myself feel this right now because this isn't the best environment to do so. But it is important if you're working through something really hard, if there's a specifically triggering headline for you or a topic that's being discussed lately, you want to make sure that you take some time to reflect on that and how it affects your life. Don't just keep it bottled up and have all that emotion inside, because we can't be productive with that energy. That just leads to more confusion, more upset, more hurt, more misunderstanding. Some ways that you can process through these emotions are journaling. I know that might sound a little bit like, okay, but it is very helpful. Writing through it. You can write like you're writing a letter to a friend and not actually send it. That's really helpful. You can do that for parents. You can do that for siblings. Writing a letter to someone and then not sending it can be very helpful. I know this from experience. You can seek out a trusted friend and intentionally talk through some of these feelings that you're having. You could seek therapy. You could go for a walk and kind of process things on your own. But it is important that you take note of upsetting things whenever they're really affecting you, and make sure, if you can't process it in that moment, to do something later on to process that emotion so that it doesn't get stuck. Also want to note that you don't want to work through these big emotions on Facebook. Don't air your grievances on Facebook. If you feel like you need to take a stand about a particular issue, I'm not going to tell you not to do that, but don't try to work through and process all of that emotional pain and trauma on social media. My personal advice, but usually that's just going to add more fuel to the fire and make it more confusing for you to know what you actually feel, because it's going to be mixed in with all these other people's really strong emotions. The second strategy for staying sane in troubling times is taking care of yourself. It can be very easy to forget about this whenever we're wrapped up in the news, wrapped up in headlines. When was the last time you had a glass of water? How much sleep did you get last night? Did you take your vitamins? Whatever you need to do in order to feel like a person. When was the last time you showered? I'm always really surprised after I shower. I'm like, how does it just make me feel so much better every time? Like I feel like a human after I shower. So what are those things you do in your life that recharge you, that refuel you, that help you feel like you're okay? Do those things, do them more often, do them as much as you need to, and make sure that you're doing the basics in your life and for those that depend on you, your children, elderly family, friends, etc. Along with this, you might want to take care of a plant or two. That's something that I picked up during the pandemic, and it's very healing to watch something grow and flourish just because that's what it was designed to do. I've definitely had my fair share of plants that have not survived, but it is really rewarding to take care of plants, to observe nature, and just be aware of how things naturally have their own ebbs and flows, and nature just takes care of itself. This is a very healing thing to reflect on from time to time. The third strategy, and this one you're not going to want to hear, accept that you cannot change other people's minds. I know, that's really tough and you want to so bad, especially people that you're close to, people that you love and respect who have different viewpoints than you. You can't change their minds. Think about something that you've changed your mind about. Change is a very personal decision, and oftentimes when people want to change, they will specifically seek out sources that will help them change in the way that they want to change. So for example, if I wanted to learn how to play the piano, I might seek out a specialized teacher that had good reviews and that I really trusted to take me to where I want to go next. I wouldn't just listen to any Joe Schmo in my neighborhood who was like, here, let me show you a few things. So generally when people are interested in changing, it's intentional. They seek out the types of sources that they're comfortable with. I'm not saying that this can't happen in other ways, but true lasting change is probably not going to happen in a one-time political debate with your family member. It might help to think about your own inclinations on this subject. Think about Thanksgiving dinner with Uncle Larry. Think about the views that you hold on a particular issue. How would you feel about Uncle Larry trying to change your mind? Are you going to budge? Are you going to make any changes? If that's how you feel, that also has to be okay for the other person to feel too, right? So both people might be coming into the conversation thinking, I am absolutely not going to change my stance. And that's not the best place to start having a discussion. If a conversation becomes confrontational or really emotionally charged, change is probably unlikely to happen. Change requires a certain amount of clarity, mutual understanding, level-headedness, things that typically don't happen whenever you're having a heated debate. So if you notice any of those signs, it might be just a good reminder for you to remember change is probably not going to happen in this situation. How much emotional energy am I willing to keep expending in this conversation? Also realize if emotions get high, there's probably something else at the root of this discussion. It's not just topic A, B, or C. It might be that they have a particular personal experience related to this topic that they feel they still need validation for, they still need to feel seen. Maybe they feel misunderstood about something that's happened in the past. More often than not, you're going to find that there's a personal connection to an issue at some point that they're subconsciously trying to work through by having this conversation with you. And the opposite is probably true too. If you feel deeply connected to something, you probably have a personal experience there, probably could use some more understanding and clarity and validation. That might be best coming from someone else other than Uncle Larry. And side note, it is not your job to identify this in the other person. You don't want to say, Uncle Larry, you have childhood trauma that you're trying to sort through right now. You don't want to do that. That is not what I'm saying here. You could just make a mental note, hey, kind of seems like this is not really about politics anymore, and just try to steer the conversation in a different direction, or excuse yourself and go into a different room, go outside, whatever you need to do in order to feel comfortable and safe. If there's mutual respect and understanding, sure, have the conversation. If it feels safe to ask questions, if it feels like the other person is interested in your viewpoint as well, sure, have the discussion. That sounds like a pretty solid ground for better understanding issues. But you do want to look for those signs of mutual respect, open dialogue, mutual question asking, and allowing each other time to answer the question and reflect on the question. All of those things should be present if you're going to have a productive conversation. And then another tidbit about social media here, just my advice, don't try to change people's minds through social media. I'm not saying you can't voice your opinions. I'm not saying you can't stand up for what means something to you, but my suggestion, center it around a way that people who feel the same way as you, center it around a way that they can come together to help. What's a cause that they can donate to? And do your best not to villainize the other side. We do not need any help othering people right now. Everyone feels othered, everyone feels divided. Do what you can to not create any more division. Focus your energy and efforts on what you can do to create change. Does this mean that we just allow injustice and let people get away with things that are really hurtful and harmful to large groups of people? No, absolutely not. But I don't think that kind of change happens through social media posts, in my opinion. Fourth strategy, set boundaries. This is very, very important. First of all, you're going to have to come to grips with what you feel comfortable talking about. This might take a while for you to figure out. It's probably a moving target that's going to change from day to day, but you'll start to identify areas where you just don't feel comfortable talking about things with certain people. You might feel comfortable with different topics when you're talking to Uncle Larry versus Aunt Sue. The choice is yours. You can set boundaries however you want to, but know that boundaries are very healthy in all relationships. It helps us know what's mine to focus on and what is the other person's that's none of my business. Identifying those lines and boundaries can really help a relationship grow. It can help us learn to respect and care for one another in new ways. Yes, it's really, really hard to set boundaries, especially when it's a new practice and other people don't set boundaries. It really upsets some people, and that's something that is really hard to get used to. But I promise, for your own personal sanity and your own personal growth, boundary setting is one of the best things, one of the best practices that you can start enacting in your life. There's 2 Instagram accounts that I love for help with boundary setting. Those are Haley Page McGee and the EQ School. I'm not getting paid to share either one of those. I just truly, really value all of the information that they share. Once you've identified what you're comfortable talking about, clearly communicate those boundaries to the other person. This is also very difficult. It can look something like this. When you talk about blank, it makes me feel blank. I would really appreciate it if we could not talk about this topic whenever we're together. Like I said, that might not be received well. They might totally blow a gasket and create a scene. Your job is to find the truth within yourself. Know that you're doing this to create more peace, more kindness within yourself, to prevent yourself from getting worked up, saying things that you regret, and using more emotional energy than you're willing to spend, knowing that you're not going to change anyone else's mind. If they keep pushing back, and I could go into a whole thing on boundaries, one technique you can use is the broken record technique. It's saying the same thing over and over and over again. And I do mean the same thing. Uncle Larry might say, what is this? Where is this coming from? What is this hippy dippy, blah, 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 starts going off. Say the same thing over and over again. I don't feel comfortable talking about this. Can we please switch to something else? He says it again. Are you kidding me? We can't even have a conversation about this. You're the one who's the problem if you're not even willing to have a discussion. I'm really uncomfortable talking about this. Can we please change the topic? You don't owe them any explanation at all. And once you start getting used to doing things like this, it actually feels really good and really empowering. But it does take so much practice. And sometimes lots of tears. I'm just gonna be real. The 5th strategy is to look for people who are helping and then become a helper when you're ready. A quote from someone who I may or may not have had a crush on when I was younger, Mr. Fred Rogers. He said, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And that's true. There are so many people who are helping, but the news focuses on doomsday. It focuses on the worst. It focuses on all of the horror stories. And so many of the beautiful, helpful things that are happening are not highlighted because they don't get clicks, they don't get ratings, they don't get reviews. There are plenty of people helping, and if you start looking for those people, I promise you'll find them. Start getting acquainted with different local charities. It could be directly related to a cause that you're wanting to support, or it could just be a way to help out in your community. Really, just helping out in general is a great way to work through feelings of injustice and like you don't have control over things that are happening in the world. So it doesn't really matter how you do it, just start looking into different ways. And you don't necessarily have to do things in person. There are plenty of ways to volunteer online if you just start looking around for those things. You can also make donations, and you can start with as little as $5, probably less than that. If you think about, if everybody gave $5 to a cause, that's amazing, right? So don't write off small donations, small contributions, because they really do add up. This is coming from someone who worked in a nonprofit for a while. I promise we value every contribution. Focus on what you can do, what you can change. What you focus on, you create more of. So stop focusing on the trolls, y'all, okay? Don't worry about them. It's just not worth it. Focus on where you want to go, focus on the change you want to be, and you're going to start going towards that. You focus on the trolls, you're going to just become a troll, okay? So turn the other way, do your own thing, and focus on what you can change and control and contribute to make the world a better, more beautiful place. And then lastly, under this strategy, vote, okay? Vote for representatives who have a larger say in these conversations. Set alerts for yourself to remind yourself when voting processes happen. Remind other people. That's one thing that I totally support on social media. Remind people when it's voting day. Tell people that you'll drive them to the polls. Do whatever it takes to get people there, get yourself there, and vote for every single election. The sixth strategy for keeping your sanity is to create things. Some of the most spellbinding art is created. I don't know if I've used that word ever, spellbinding. Some of the most beautiful, incredible artwork is created during times of strife and trauma and grief. So get busy. If it's art or writing or YouTube videos, whatever your craft is, playing the piano, roller skating, that's a new one that I've been seeing lately. Just go out, do something, create something with your body and express yourself. Not only is that therapeutic just in general, but it's also great in complementing the first strategy of allowing yourself to process through these upsetting emotions. Please use this energy to create more beauty in this world. And through art, you can represent whatever community you're a part of. It's like a win-win, win-win, win. Yeah. Strategy number 7, spend time with people who are different than you. This might feel really intimidating at first. Maybe it's just reading a book about a different people group or a different culture or a different background, different histories. Maybe you go to your local library and check out classes that might be helpful for better understanding people who are different than you. Maybe there's a craft that represents a different community across the world. The possibilities really are endless if you start looking. Something that I have really enjoyed doing lately, there's a show on Netflix called My Next Guest Needs No Introduction, I believe. It's with Dave Letterman, and he interviews all different types of influential people. He's had political figures, he's had artists, he's had actors, he's had athletes. There's all different types of people that he interviews, and he gets to know their story. He wants to uncover what has made these people great, and he digs into their background and how they've become who they are. He has a moment when he's interviewing Julia. He has a moment when he's interviewing Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And at the end, he says, I can't help it, but every time after an interview, after I've spent so much time with this person, I can't help but to love them. And it's such a sweet moment because there's so many people who are so different than him, who have so many different perspectives and views and outlooks on life. But he starts to see that when he spends time with them and actually understands their backgrounds and their stories, that he feels very connected to them. So that could be kind of a cool challenge. Turn on that show, find a guest that particularly irks you. I have a couple in mind that might work for you. And watch their stories and see if there's something that you can find that you have in common with them. Also, the lighting is changing in this room and it's driving me crazy. Ta-da! The 8th strategy, I feel so awkward when I do this because my 3 just feels so weird. Model kindness and empathy with your children. If you're a parent, I find so much joy in this. This is a great way to change the world. Teach your kids to be the change that you want to see in the world by modeling it. Kids hear so much. Kids hear everything that you talk about, which is terrifying sometimes, especially in this world, because how are you supposed to find time to process everything that's happening? Anyways, personal struggle. You're not going to do this perfectly, so talk to your kids when you make a mistake. Hey, that thing I said the other day about Aunt Sue, you know what, I was kind of out of line when I said that, and I wish I would have shown her more kindness because she was probably going through something tough that day. Whatever it is, apologize to your kids when you cross a line. Show kindness. Go out of your way to do nice things for people. This is a great way that you can change the world because then your kids are going to follow in your footsteps. They're going to influence their friends. And then if they choose to have kids in the future, it's just a great big old ripple effect. And it can also help you not lose your sanity because, I don't know, I just look at my kids and I'm like, there's still goodness in the world, you know? They're so beautiful and innocent and pure and there's hope, right? There's hope. And then the 9th and final strategy, stay in the present moment. Especially right now, I know I have a tendency to dwell on things that have already happened, things that have happened in the news, conversations that I've had that have been upsetting. We can't go back and change any of that stuff. Yeah, we need to take time to process it, and then we need to move on. This kind of works with one of the other strategies of getting involved, supporting a local cause. Do what you can to make change now. Create opportunities for kindness, for empathy, and really think about where do you want to go from here? Do you want to see a greater representation for women, for minorities, for the autistic community? What are you doing today to support those communities? It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can send the leader of an organization that you admire a thank you note for all that they do. You can create a piece of art and share it with someone who means something to you. You can buy a single mom's dinner for the night. There's really no shortage of ideas when it comes to showing other people kindness, but you can do something today to better support and take care of communities that are important to you. I'm convinced that small acts of kindness are truly what change the world. They have this incredibly profound ripple effect that we will probably never get to see or understand or experience, but just trust the process. Kindness will create more kindness, will create more kindness. You might not have any idea that it's happening, and you might totally not believe me, but I will believe it for you. Just do that one act of kindness and then do it again and again and again. We really need you to do this. We all really need to do this. Please, let's all do this. And I want to ask you, when thinking about that small acts of kindness can make a difference, just close your eyes for a second and think about that. Do you notice any difference in how your body feels? And if you don't really have practice tuning in to what your body's feeling, maybe you don't feel any change right now, and that's okay. But maybe you notice that the knot in your stomach loosens just a little bit. Maybe you notice you have a little tingly sensation across your skin. It feels better to believe these things, that we can change the world through kindness, that we don't have to hold on to all this negativity and rage and grief. It feels better in our bodies. And when we can let go of that stress, it helps us stay healthier, which just kind of perpetuates the cycle. We feel better, so we act better, we're kinder, we take better care of ourselves and our bodies, so we take better care of other people on the earth. It really, again, is that ripple effect that's so profound. So in closing, as hard as it might be to accept, you can't change anyone else's mind. This is tough, but also liberating. It's not your job. And honestly, what other people think of you is really none of your business. I know that's hard to hear too, but again, liberating. Do you really want to know what every member of your family around the Thanksgiving table thinks about you in that moment? That would be completely overwhelming. It's none of your business what they think about you. Your job is to be as true to yourself as you can. And I really believe that when we do that, it allows for more kindness. Like when we feel like we can be the true expression of ourselves without allowing that negativity to take over our power and our essence, that's when I feel like kindness just explodes. So the more we can allow other people to be the truest expression of themselves, give them space and room to do that, and take the space and room that we need to do it for ourselves, I believe that makes a huge difference in the world. Because when you really feel validated, it kind of wears away at that need to get it from other people, right? When you can get validation in a healthy and supportive way, you don't feel the need to do it around the dinner table at holidays. You don't feel the need to do it on social media because you already feel inside that you have what you need to be fulfilled. So when other people are lashing out, just know they're working through some stuff. It's not your job to fix it or help them identify what's going on, but you can show that you're a safe person to come to if they ever do want to talk, if you choose to do that. People change when they want to change. That growth is usually very painstakingly slow and non-linear, meaning that someone might show change and then a really big regression that makes you lose hope. But don't lose hope, because change is very rarely a straight line. It usually looks like all over the place. So make a statement by living the life that you want to live, by living a life that you would be proud of, by living a life that you want your kids to live. People do not change by being shamed or proven wrong. Usually when people are proven wrong, it just drives them further into their own belief system. So stop wasting your beautiful, precious energy on that. Live a life that you're proud of by starting with small choices. Let go of other people's opinions and watch what a truly profound difference it makes, not just in you, but in the world around you. We are in this together. You are loved, no matter if you believe the same things as me or the polar opposite. I'm getting emotional. There is hope. Please be kind to your neighbor. And that starts with being kind to yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.